Join us on a trip to the Philippines, this one in 2002. During this crusade in San Francisco, Quezon, Philippines, we had some interesting experiences, some travel by boat, and we'll take you on those trips. And before going on the crusade, we had the Teachers Convention for South Central Luzon Conference. As we were leaving Atlanta Hartsfield Airport, interesting thing happened. Some luggage was being hauled near us, and one of the pieces of luggage fell off, and it set off the mace, the pepper spray, and with the spray filling the area, security descended on the place. They made everybody evacuate, and they called in the police. So after being outside for a while, we were allowed back in, and the local Fox television station interviewed me for the evening news, sharing our experience. As you know, travel by commercial airlines is a lot of hurry up and wait. And when a little one just can't take it anymore, any place is a great place to crash. So here is Elizabeth, our granddaughter, crashed. And here is Wes on Cherry's lap, zonked out. After a time, though, we were able to board the plane. Many hours later, next day, here we are in Manila, Philippines. And our luggage is loaded on the racks there, on the trays, and we are waiting for Pastor George to pick us up. The waiting party is not allowed to come to the receiving area. They wait across the street. There's an observatory up above, or they can wait down below. But when they see you, they give a wave and then come pick you up. So here we are staying in the guest house at the conference office. It is one of the places where some of the directors live. So what does a little girl look like when Grandpa walks into the room and says, "Lizzie"? And Lizzie swung her head around, eyes big, wondering what Grandpa wanted, and she got her picture taken. Our first appointment was the Teachers Convention, and the Teachers Convention was held at the Banahaw View Academy, a Category 1 unit, and there was the office or headquarters for the school. For people who have been living in the USA, coming to the Philippines is hot. So there sits a dutiful father, there's Keith, fanning Cherry and Lizzie, just outside of the church facility where we had our meetings. Here is a lady that our dear Jonna Jane will know. Jonna Jane Alito. Jane is not her middle name, but it's what I always called her. Jonna Jane Alito, now married to Ben Strothers, and this is her mother. She was a teacher in South Central. Here she is with the family after the convention was over, after I had taught the class. You can see Lizzie is sacked out again in Keith's arms, Becca in front of Cherry, and then Jonna's mom, Jan, holding Wes, myself, and Pastor George Panghulan. We had to see Jonna's family in their home, and at one point we were able to do just that. Here they are, many of them, in their little house. Going on down to San Francisco, Quezon, where the big event took place. This is the medical mission. It happened in the covered court, which is standard for municipalities. It's also where the evangelistic meetings were held. They had a school in San Francisco. It was in a leased property, and the property lease was going to expire soon. They asked us to go visit a location where they hoped we would help them purchase property where they could build a school. You can see in the background the cement superstructure, but right now we crossed on a temporary bridge. The cement superstructure was for a more permanent bridge to follow. And we hiked out to a beautiful, beautiful place. Here we have Rebecca, and Wesley, enjoying a little swing at the place where we stayed. Out in front of it, there is Dudong and Wes playing hide and seek. Dudong loved the children. Friday afternoon, we went to the crusade site. The chairs were cleared away, the medical mission was done, and the Christ Our Hope Crusade was scheduled to start April 28, 2002. You can see me leaning up against the corner there. My back after riding on the jeepney on a long, bumpy, dusty road. I was not in good shape. On Sabbath morning, Pastor George invited my father, Big Papa as the kids called him, Dad Russell as Pastor George called him, and they're talking about education, the value of Christian education. My dad went with us on many of our evangelistic trips. And here I am with Pastor George as he's translating for me on Sabbath morning. Sabbath afternoon, trying to get a little bit of coolness out in front of the place where we stayed. Interesting thing was, for some reason, there was no water at the house. It was a fairly good sized house. So it meant that some of the men had to bring in barrels of water and carry the barrels into the house every day. And the water that was used for doing our laundry. Bless their hearts. And we had one lady who did our laundry every day. Her name was Alma. She had a number of children. Her husband had been murdered fairly recently, and she was doing what she could to help. It was her contribution. She would not allow us to pay her anything. So Dad Russell began to sponsor her children to go to school. Not only were the meetings held in San Francisco, Quezon, but there were some that were going on simultaneously or had just concluded. And here I am in a trike, a ped trike, and you see Becca to the right. She has her life jacket on. And we have just come down to the seashore, and we are about to take a trip. The tide is out. They took us in a small boat to a larger boat, and then we headed out. Oh, yes. You see Wes there, and you see Dudong to your left with Becca in his arms. How to get onto this boat? My dad was in his 70s, and he was game to go anywhere. And the men wanted to give him an assist getting in. Underway now. I don't know what I had said, but I see Keith is laughing, and I see the steersman in the back is also laughing. So here's Wes, Becca, Elizabeth, and Dudong. And here's Cherry on the left, and here I am on the right. If you look at my face, you can see I don't feel the very best. We arrived in Gutad, and we had to hike to the village. As we walked, we heard the Voice of Prophecy quartet over a loudspeaker system. It was really quite an experience as we walked there. So in the foreground is Cherry, myself, and then my dad. And out in front is Pastor George with Wes and Althea, George and Bing's daughter, and then Becca. Here we are at the location at Pagawan. We went to Pagawan and Gutad. If you look at my eyes, you can see I don't feel the best. But this is where we were to have the meeting. It was middle of the morning. They had a lace cloth that covered the pulpit. In the shade of the trees, they had the church benches. I'm hoping that some of our Sabanel family can remember some of these people because they were from this very place. Here I am waiting to go on the platform. By now, I really do not feel good at all. But with 103-degree temperature, what could I do? I needed to preach. Sorry, Keith. There you are catching flies. So I got up and preached. I preached for 30 minutes, and I thought that's enough. And I told George that was enough. And he said, no, these people have been waiting. They want to hear you. So I preached on for another 30 minutes. There are the children waiting for the meeting to begin. And then we had a baptism. After the baptism, we would come out, kneel in the sand, and have a prayer of blessing on those baptized. While we were waiting for lunch, I used my dad's chair. I'm just glad my mouth didn't fall open, but I didn't feel well. As we're leaving, how do you get up into the boat now? So this is how we got up into the boat. With someone standing on each side giving us an assist, we climbed the plank with the cleats on it and into the boat. Throughout the week, we had children's meeting followed by the adult meeting. Here's pictured on the left Althea, who we call Thea. She's now a woman and she's married. And here is Prime, Rebecca, and Lizzie. Maybe it's a little bit stressful for Lizzie, I'm not sure. And here is Becca giving her very first solo. So you see the looks of the adults checking her out. The power went off, so one of the deacons with a flashlight showed it on the felt screen as Cherry told the story of Noah and the great flood. Here the children are attending the meeting. End of the week, and it's baptism time. We're down by the seashore, and that's one of the blessings of being one of the pastors doing the baptizing, because when it's hot, you get to cool off a little bit. Everywhere we went, Big Papa went, and there he is, sitting in his chair. Everybody's interested in what Wes is doing. He found some shells, and he put it in the cup holder net of Big Papa's chair. Then the baptisms began. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pastors conducting the baptisms. And here the candidates are, after having been baptized, getting ready for the prayer. Relaxing at Prime's house. Here the children are. Prime has been reading this storybook that Lizzie is holding in her hands. Before we left, to save us from having to go all the way to the airport early in the morning, we stayed at the Union Guest House, newly built, and Tatai Go on the left, Daddy Go, and Bing Go, now Bing Panghulan, and Nanai, or Mommy Go, and then there's George Panghulan. What's all this Go business? It's the name, the last name of Tatai and Nanai. And it was Bing's maiden name. And she got the nickname of Bing Go. But they saw us off. We flew into Los Angeles, and we overnighted with Chad and Kim. And here we are. Pastor George on the left, Bing on the right. Myself on the left, and there's Becca, always near Poppy. And Keith Cherry, Elizabeth, my dear Jan, and Wes in her hands, and Dad Russell beside Jan and Bing. I hope you enjoyed this trip to the Philippines.